Welcome beyond the Reiki Gateway. I'm your host, Andrea Kennedy. Like countless others, Reiki found me when I wasn't even looking, and then it ignited a whole new world of questions. This podcast explores topics of interest for the spiritually curious. Join me for discussions and special guests on subjects such as past lives, crystal healing, spiritual awakening, ascension, energy healing, and more, all to assist and inspire you along your unique soul's journey. Hello, everyone. It's Andrea, and I have a special announcement to make. I'm very excited to announce my 2 Reiki classes that I will be teaching in person this summer. They're going to happen in the United Kingdom. I'm traveling there from Michigan here in the United States, and I cannot wait to meet my Reiki students there. We'll be at the beautiful French Partridge Hotel near Northampton, and I will be teaching a Reiki 1 and 2 class June 13th and 14th, and then the Reiki Master class begins the 16th and goes through the 19th. We have special hotel accommodation packages available as well. Again, I cannot wait to meet you there and share Holy Fire Reiki with all of you. But class size is limited. To find out more and reserve your seat, please head over to mainstreamreiki.com. You'll see a banner at the top of the page. Click that. You'll get all the information. If you have questions, send me an email. Thanks so much. I hope it works out that we meet in class. Welcome beyond the Reiki Gateway. I'm your host, Andrea Kennedy, and today I am introducing you to Dr. Sharnael Wolverton Sehon. She blends naturopathic medicine, spirituality, and quantum science to empower individuals toward thriving and wholeness. She offers practical tools to help people tap into and develop their intuition. She's authored several books, creates for her own YouTube channel, and is working to assist people in transforming and elevating their life experiences and connecting to their ultimate potential. Welcome to the show. I'm thrilled to have you here. And can't wait to get into it with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be with you and like-minded people, and let's dig in. I'm excited.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you really said it. Like-minded people. That, I think, is just a headline for the times that we're in, because, in history, we've never had it this good as far as communication goes. And I just find it fascinating to start thinking about that and how we can come together, how we can connect, have these conversations that, quite frankly, we just couldn't do before.
Yeah, I agree. There's really good things to technology. Of course, there's downsides where people get kind of sucked in sometimes. But man, I mean, the fact that you can be in Michigan and I'm down here and everyone's, I did conference speaking for 17 years and I still do conference speaking. And I miss the whole hugging and book signing and looking in people's eyes. And I do probably maybe 1 or 2 a month compared to 6 or 7 a week, but yeah, it's cool that I could just be in my clinic and just talk to people long distance and then quick work with patients and then jump on again. And I'm talking to someone else completely in Australia or New Zealand or Canada. It's very cool.
It is really, really cool. And, I want to really get into the science. You do so many different things and have a lot of different areas of expertise. But as a naturopathic doctor, I'm a pretty mainstream person. And so that's how I was raised. And so all of these wonderful things that I get to talk about and delve into, that for me came a little bit later. Did you always know you wanted to be a doctor of a different kind? Or how did that first happen for you?
I actually was always in the spiritual avenue, and kind of, I guess around 13, I decided to literally devote myself to full-time ministry and service. And I made a declaration of that. And I mean, that's kind of a weird thing, but I did not grow up in any kind of spiritual situation, and I didn't necessarily know that I wanted to be a doctor. Later, when I went to Bible school and seminary, and that's not my path anymore. I look at it more like metaphysics. But I, what I was drawn to, Andrea, was the miracles, was the supernatural, like the paranormal, the things that are outside the box. So when someone introduced me to the Bible, I was like reading about these people that were doing these extraordinary things, and that was what inspired me to know, like, okay, these people did it. Why are we not doing it? And then really going on this path to find people who are doing these things, and then, look into what is the formula? Like, how do we do these things ourselves? And let's make it more mainstream instead of this like paranormal, supernatural, like, let's be natural about it, and that's for me. So I didn't even go back to, I grew up military. So like you, I was very mainstream when it came to medical. Like we went to the doctor, we went to the dentist they got the checkups. Like that's not my path anymore. But after being very, very ill for about 7 years and knocking on all the doors and going to all the doctors and not getting anything but a circus, I was introduced to a man who absolutely is an MD, but also very into all the biohacking stuff. For me, that was back in 2008. I had never heard of all these things that are kind of more mainstream now, like ozone therapy, biofeedback, red light therapy, infrared sauna, hyperbaric chamber. Like he was using those things like right when, as soon as possible they would come out. And so I was introduced to that. I was 37 before I went back and got my doctorate. Just because, again, I thought I would go into more of like a divinity type thing, because to me, spirituality is electronics and it is science. That I don't see a separation of those things anymore. That was just another way that I could learn more about the body and how it works with spirit and all of us as our electric beings. Reiki is a perfect example. You could do it remote, you could do it in person. Like, this is supernatural, or is it natural? We have the technology.
I love that. We do have the technology. Absolutely. And so what would you say if someone is wondering, how does the mainstream doctor compare to the naturopathic doctor? What is the, like, boil it down for us. What's the difference?
The biggest difference to me is education. I think in my mind, or what I've made up, is medical doctors are trained a certain way to deal with how to like mask and or just stop, whatever the symptoms are. Unless you're like a surgeon, well, I guess a surgeon would do the same thing. And I have a lot of respect for surgeons and a lot of respect for doctors in general. I'm not anti-Western medicine. What I love about the naturopathic path, or the natural path, is I look at symptoms and I look at why you're having symptoms. And then we funnel it all the way back to actually go to the root issue and or the cause of those symptoms, whether it's emotional or environmental, or maybe some abuse or trauma that's been lodged. There could be some food sensitivities. There could be hormone issues. Maybe you need a liver cleanse. There's some things that like our grandparents did that are very helpful and natural, that don't have the side effects, and also get to the root issue without, I guess, making things bigger and worse. I know a lot of people, for example, a friend of mine had went to the doctor just last week because his back was just completely bothering him. I mean, really to the point of barely walking. And I said, hey, call me and tell me what they say. I want to know what's happening, and he comes home and they're like, they just gave me oxytocin. And I said, oh, well, what did they say? And he's like, they didn't say anything. And I'm like, well, did they give you an x-ray? Did they give you an MRI? Like, no, it was a 15-minute quick in and out, and they, sent him home with pharmaceuticals, with literally no understanding of diagnostics of why he was even having the problem in the first place. And that isn't my path anymore. If you ignore symptoms, very similar to like a car needing oil, you might have that check light that comes on and a little buzzing, annoying thing. If you bring it to someone to get help, like a mechanic, and say, hey, this is really annoying. Can you fix this for me? If his response is, I only got 15 minutes, but let me just unplug this for you real quick. You won't have this annoying light anymore. You'll be fine. You're going to drive away, and like not long from then, you're going to have some more bigger issues. And I like to not only get to the root so we can be on top of it not happening again and move that whole timeline of dis-ease in the body, but I also am very much focused on preventative and or management and or just lifestyle choices like here and the now, so we don't get to that point of being sick in the first place or having that disease. And I'm not seeing a lot of MDs really focus on teaching, which the word doctor actually means teacher. And I think that doctors in general have kind of got away from teaching. And that's my favorite thing, is to teach. And it sounds like you are very much in that teacher spot too, like just training and teaching and getting people equipped to know their own self.
Oh yeah, I think one of my missions is to help empower people. I just think they're miraculous all by themselves. And that's how I see them. And so many people just don't get how amazing they are and what their potential really is. And so that's one of the big things that I want to help people remember. So a couple things. Number one, I love your analogy about just unplugging the check engine light. I love that. I just think that is a really great illustration. Secondly, oh my gosh, even for mainstream doctors, that example that you gave with the doctor and the back pain, that's really bad. I mean, I've received much better care, luckily, from, a regular doctor. So I guess, like anything, there is a whole spectrum of care. But what stands out to me is, in the contrast of traditional MD versus naturopathic, what it sounds like to me also is you're a detective. In the naturopathic field, you're really a detective who's engaged. You're investigating, you're investing time to uncover those causes and trace things back and tailor, I guess, the treatment to what that individual actually needs, instead of just the Band-Aid approach type of thing. And so that's very inspiring. From my perspective, just to have the time and attention and the interest to help people in that unique way that offers the, I guess I would say, opportunity for that person to be seen and heard, which has to be healing all by itself.
Absolutely. And I love that you said tailored, and because I usually use the word customized, but yeah, I never thought of myself as a detective, but I do like figuring things out. Like that is one of my things. And people who come to me usually have went to all the doctors. Like I have been known as this person who finds the mystery and has been even to help other doctors. I mean, I've worked with doctors all over in wellness centers and regular hospitals, and they're like, hey, we can't figure this out, and I'll use biofeedback and or whatever, and we can go back and trace and figure things out. And sometimes the doctors are like, how did you know that? I'm like, well, we have the technology, it's easy to figure it out, especially when you see patterns and different things. And I look at even thought processes, programs, and or conscious language, body language. All of those pieces are really big components in figuring out or remembering. I like the word remembering too. How we can be in our true alignment with source code and or universe, God, whatever you want to call that person inside or that being. However you.
I'm wondering if you have insight for us. I think that we are awakening. We've come a long way. I do believe that, but we're definitely on a trajectory of waking up here on the planet. Many, many people are more intuitive. They're seeking more truth, more wisdom, more, I would say, exploring their innate potential and their gifts and that kind of thing. And a lot of people are searching for their life purpose and things like that. I would say so much more than they were. It's just this growing, I think, crescendo of seeking. And I just love it because these are exciting times, wouldn't you say?
I agree 100%. I'm seeing people and experiencing people who are more aware and more awake. And going back to what you said, I think that podcasts like what you're doing, and thank you so much for having this avenue for people. I think that people have shut down television and programming of that sort because the last 4 or 5 years have been startling and polarizing and sad, and there's been a lot of division and just so much going on that I think it's got people to want to look for other alternatives, not just in being fed up with the medical system and or the country or whatever the situation, their family situation, but it's causing a lot of people or giving a lot of people the opportunity to say, okay, maybe I shouldn't be looking outward. Maybe I should be looking inward and or looking to these alternative streams of information that may have something that resonates with them a little bit more, that gives them a little inspiration or a little bit hope instead of just, the television and the bad news, the bad news, the bad news. And there's literally a vibe and entrainment to that. And I know when I quit watching the news and even some television shows like, murder this and, detect, all those kind of just bad, scary, all of that, your limbic system, which is behind your frontal lobe, the limbic system cannot tell the difference between imagination and or anything visually around them and or real life. And so whatever real life is, but, so when we participate in horror movies or bad music or anything of these polarization kind of extremes on the news or whatever, our body can go into fight or flight and like raise cortisol, bring stress to the body, and it feels like we're participating in it in some level, which stresses out our physiological issues, our neurological issues, suppresses the immune system, causes our hair to gray, our skin to wrinkle, we dehydrate, cancel clear, all those things. And I think people are looking for a little more ease, a little more fun, a little more understanding and wisdom and alternatives to not just health, but to life, and to see like, why am I here in the middle of all this? Like, what is my purpose, like you mentioned, and really digging deep into choosing like how to be the best version of themselves while they're here, because we're here anyway, we might as well do something really great and leave a mark and a legacy and create something really pretty and beautiful.
Absolutely. I often think back to the pandemic, right? I mean, it was 2020, and that had a lot of meaning for me. Maybe you would agree, because I thought, 2020, seeing very clearly now, seeing with 2020 vision about where I am as an individual, where the world's been, let's really take the blinders off. And for a lot of people, I think that rang true, so not fooling ourselves anymore, that it was a pretty pivotal time.
I think there was a lot of disclosure and a lot of things that came to light that maybe the beings of whoever kind of overplayed their hand a little bit, forcing some issues. And with all the things that happened during that time, I think that people were a little bit fed up and just decided, you know what, let's just do something else. Let's do something different. Let's look other ways and find different answers and different solutions. And I know lots of people who did that. I know there's still some people that are kicking and fighting and still in that matrix. And also, you know, I've come to realize that it's not my job to wake people up. Me trying to force anything isn't any better than them trying to force me to believe them. And no one likes to be pushed. What I have come to realize is people are not opposed to being changed, but they're opposed to being changed. And so when it's their idea, and, you know, which is unfortunately a lot of times when people hit rock bottom, that's when people call me and they're like, hey, and maybe they call you and they're like, hey, you know, what do I do? Because they know that you're a trusted source. And maybe they're not saying anything out loud, but they've been following and they've been seeing and watching from the side. I've had people who 6 months, 12 months, 2 years who've come even recently and said, look, I've been following you for about 2 years. I used to believe this and this and this, but I'm starting to wonder. And people are waking up, like you said. It's true.
I'm wondering if you have a crystal ball and you could tell us, how do you see or imagine that the future will play out with medicine? You know, we're at a real change point, I think, here, at least in the United States, because a lot of people are really fed up with not getting the right answers, not getting the care that, I mean, gosh, we rank so low as far as the quality of our medical care. And then you, as a representative, you know, at least right here in this moment with me, a representative for the other way, you know, insurance is a big thing, right? It plays into all of this because people have insurance, but now the insurance isn't even paying. And, you know, there's been a lot about that lately. So, I don't know. So from your perspective, someone in this so closely, what do you think is happening?
If some things happen in the next few weeks and a certain person gets in, I think there's going to be massive change.
Okay. Yeah.
We brought him into Louisiana as well as Peter McCullen, Dr. Malone. I've had Jane Ruby on several times. But he has some pretty massive ideas about different alternatives and changes in a lot of things, not just what's in the food, but what's in the air, what's in the water. He's very aware and awake, and hopefully that will bring a lot of different changes. But in the meantime, what I'm seeing is people are taking ownership back of their own health, because we cannot rely on a certain person to be in office or not be in office, or whatever the situation is we saw in the last 4 or 5 years. People chose to dig a little bit and get their own things in their own home. I mean, I know a lot of people who have, and I train people to have like ozone therapy at your house, and or infrared sauna or red light therapy. I know people who have hyperbaric chambers and lasers and PEMF and all of these things that are easily attainable without any kind of license or being a doctor. And they're very easy that a child can use, and you know, people can serve themselves and stay on the preventive end, so they're not having to dip into whatever deductible insurance won't cover and blah, 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 blah. I mean, I literally was just having this conversation with my oldest yesterday, because insurance for them, I think, was like $2,000 for the 3 of them. And they just went to go somewhere to the hospital, and their deductible is 10 grand. Most people never meet that 10 grand unless there's some sort of emergency, which God forbid there would be. But most of us who do have insurance, at least the people that I serve, they don't even use their insurance, but they have to have it, and or, you know, all of that. So there's so many things that need to change. But the biggest one I see is people taking authorship and authority back into their own homes, and being preventative and on purpose with what they eat, what they drink, how they sleep, and how they take care of themselves now. So they're not in those positions where there's, lack and or no support or help.
How would you suggest, though, that we get good information? Because it seems, at least from where I sit, I can find somebody on the internet telling me to do this and then, oh no, don't do that. Or do this, but this way. Oh, don't ever do everything. I can find one thing and then a contradictory thing. How do we know where to look for actual quality information? Because I think that's one of the big blocks that a lot of people have from transitioning to a more mainstream approach to something else. It's really hard to know who to trust, what to trust. I don't know.
Yeah. Word of mouth is really good, meaning if you know people who have had certain experiences with a certain person and or certain modalities, then that becomes a trusted source. I am not so quick to just look at any information and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to take that as 100% and just put it down on my book. And, because we've been lied to for so long. A matter of fact, the United States is the only country besides New Zealand that even allows pharmaceutical commercials on, which is the whole programming, thing to make everyone believe that they have something because they say it all in first person. And then it's ridiculous, the side effects, where they're like, oh, we want this for this, but it also will give you that. It's like, really? Why are we doing this? But you're right. There's mass information out there, which again is so important to just focus for me on the preventative side. If you're doing ozone at home really regular, or even a little bit of maintenance and or detoxing, eating pretty well, using red light therapy, which is those two things are just simple, like not super big investments to have, and your children can use them, your animals can use them, those type of things have already been proven, and they're not like, I wonder if that works. Like, Tesla made ozone and the ozone generator. He didn't make ozone, but he made the ozone generator, and this has been around for years. This is what used to be in our hospitals to clean out the hospitals. They're still to this day using that as a way to clean hospitals and or bathrooms, restaurants, whatever. If you go overseas, I just came back from a whole tour in Europe. Everywhere I went, every hotel, every restaurant, clinics, everything was ozone because it doesn't have a side effect like bleach and these other cleaners that really mess with the hormones and your endocrine system. And, I would just smell it and I'd be like, yep, I know what that is. It smells amazing. And it smells like rain and it's beautiful and it's clean. And those are things that we can do in our home. Matter of fact, if you go to my website and you hit the button that says ozone at home, it'll give you a free video and explains all the ways and the steps of what it does for everything hormones, everything weight loss, everything anti-aging, everything. Then I'm not going to say all the things that if something came up and or if you choose to be preventative, just on an emotional level, it really, really helps with endorphins and dopamine and serotonin. And, just people call it a happy pill. Everyone who's on it, they may come in for maybe they wanted to not have a knee surgery, but they come in for ozone therapy for inflammation, pain, and reducing that. They always text the next day, oh my God, when can I come back? Like, I flew home. I was so happy. I've not been this happy in so long. Is that a happy pill? And I'm like, kinda, and this can be our life. This can be a way of life and a lifestyle when and if we choose this as our practice in our daily life.
How do you see the care of the physical body and I guess also mental, you mentioned emotions and happiness and that kind of thing. How does that partner with the spirit?
Well, spirit is interesting. There's a frequency to it as well. And also emotions are a big deal. 86% of all physical issues are actually what they call conversion disorder, meaning we have an emotional trauma or something happens, and then it attaches to and or holds on to or gets assigned to, I should say, some body part, and it'll stay dormant for a little while and or start to show signals or symptoms. And when it does that, that's when we get to be the detective and go back and find that, because it's not a message to get more pain medicine. It's a message to say, hey, this is a time to let go of whatever happened when you were 2 or 5 or whatever. But the spiritual aspect for me is really digging in and tapping into that inner intuition, that inner guidance system. I call it the GPS, or the God positioning system. Learning to trust that voice inside. Because, for example, years ago, I kept waking up in the morning and I would hear this voice that said, stop eating sugar. No more sugar. Three days in a row. I wasn't overweight. There wasn't anything that I knew that was going on. I wasn't feeling great. But so after the third time, I pay attention to that. I don't know who this voice is. Is it my higher self? Is it God? I choose to know. And or I did the thing, right? A month later, I was actually diagnosed with cancer. And we know that sugar feeds cancer. So, and they were giving me just not very much time to be on the planet at the time. Now, I reversed all that. But that month of not eating sugar and starving it out, who knows what kind of headway that gave me just by listening to that inner voice. And we get those inner voices about everything. Call your mom. Go get flowers for a friend. Make that appointment. Go give this away to somebody. All of those things. And I look at the Bible like metaphysics, and there is a scripture that says, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and then all these things will be added unto you. The kingdom is here. This is my kingdom. This is my kingdom. And when I listen to that inner voice and do those things, then all these things will be added unto me. Meaning, a lot of people feel stuck and not sure and can't make decisions and overwhelmed. And I tell them, go make a list of 15 things that you haven't done that you know you need to do. And as soon as you do those things, trust me, the answers will come. Even 5 of those things could knock out and clear what's going on in the field, because that information will be stored there until we follow that GPS. And then we start to get clarity and remember what it is that we are supposed to be doing about this or about that or with who. And that's what spirit means to me. But I'm curious about what you think.
Oh, well, I had a whole nother question ready for you. So, to me, I think we're primarily spirit, and just a fragment of who we are is really sitting here, having this conversation. So I think we're largely that. We're mostly that. And we're here having an experience.
Yes.
That is quite remarkable. And I feel like I won the lottery to be here on Earth at this time. I would love for you to share with our audience the tips. How can they really tune into their intuition? And, I think the big question for so many people is, how do they know that it's intuition? It's the trusting part that so many people have trouble doing. So what practical tips can you give us to help us?
Girl, you named it. I'm telling you, trust is a biggie. And I think it's a little bit trial and error. I don't know how it's been with you and your experience. But for me, when I've heard those voices, whoever that is, there's been times when I did do what they said or it said, and there's been times when I didn't. And usually when I haven't, get the flight at so-and-so time to go so-and-so, and then I don't want to get this other one, then I get stuck at some airport, for 8 hours or whatever. I'm like, man, I knew I should have got that other one, even though it seemed a little more expensive or going to a different place I wasn't familiar with. It's we can get very we like to do things the same way, or at least me. I'm not a big adventurous person. And so sometimes I will override that spirit situation because I'm like, oh no, I know better. No, this is the way I do it though. I normally go to this grocery store. That's what I do. Why would I go to that one? And so to to pay attention and to listen. I actually had this situation where 3 times it's 3 times again. I kept having this dream saying, it's time to meet Will. It's time to meet Will. And I was like, that was really when I was traveling a lot on 6 planes a week. I called my office and I was like, okay, is there somewhere I'm going with a Will or a William? Like, who's Will? Who's Bill? Everyone kept saying no. Second day I called again. It happened again. They're like, oh, we don't see anything, doctor. I was like, okay. When I found out that I was having some health issues and I went to a doctor, the one I was telling you about that does both naturopath and MD stuff, the first thing he did, he sit down and he hands me this, paperwork like you normally fill out. I filled out all the paperwork. He didn't even want to look at it. And then he sends me this another paper. I'm hooked up to all these machines at the time. When I look at this paper, as soon as I grab it, I don't even see it. And it sounds like Pac-Man just died on these machines. And I'm like, oh no, that's not a good thing. And his face was like, and I'm like, that's not the face you want to see your doctor giving you. So I was like, what is on the paper? And what's going on? And he was like, well, no, your body is rejecting everything on this paper. And normally people will read it and have that response, but this is the first time I've seen you just touch it and like that happen. And I'm like, well, what's on the paper? So I look on the paper and it says, you are loved, you are called, you have divine purpose, you're beautiful, like all these like pretty flowery things about me, right? And I was like, I don't get it. And he's like, you don't agree with anything on here. And I was like thinking, this is embarrassing. I don't want to say this out loud, but like my whole job was to teach people that they are different and beautiful and have a call and, have a purpose. So if I'm not believing that about me, then what the heck, I'm not doing the best job as a rep here, right? So I said, what do I do? How do I fix this? And he takes it back and he sits there a minute and he grabs a pencil, he writes something and then he hands it back to me. And when he gives it back to me, I look to see what he wrote and he had only written at the top, I will. I was like, okay, help me out here. And he's like, I want you to get in the mirror and I want you to say, I will that I have a call. I will that I am loved. I will that I'm beautiful. I will that I have purpose. I will that people love me, or, whatever the paper said, until entrainment comes in, until you actually believe it, until you agree with it, and until that is your belief and or be alive in it. And I was like, what? And he said, your will is 400,000 times stronger than your spirit. And then all of a sudden I hear, it's time to meet Will. And I saw that I was overriding that GPS in so many ways. I wasn't listening to those voices. I was overriding and or making my own choice with my own willpower, when really, in all actuality, I needed to get out of my left brain and really focus a little bit more on balance and dropping into my heart from my head and just going with what my heart said instead of always what my mind was saying, and, to tune into that. Sleep is really good. Practice is really good. Just practice even a little thing. If it says, call your mom and see what the results are. And the more you practice, the more confident you are in that voice. And when you do fail to listen because you choose will, and don't align your will with spirit, then you sometimes have different results that aren't so fun. And that to me is a lesson to say, like, I never want to do that again. So I'm going to pay attention to that more and tap into that more. But diet also helps. Frequency helps. Clearing as much as possible out of the field. So there is that clearance. And the other thing is, a lot of people that I work with have parasites and or fungus. Those things really cause a lot of brain fog, and they all have their own energies. So what I have seen is these energies go out into the field and basically send a signal that you are a good host or victim, cancel clear, and people will only submit to your lowest common denominator, whether you know about it or not. And we've been doing these group cleanses where we kill parasites monthly as a fun little group thing. I started out me doing it, and then I was like, let's all do it. And I'm doing a test study with a certain product. And on the out question, what I'm asking people is, what are you seeing now that it's been 2 months of clearing all of this? And a lot of people are saying, I got a check in the mail from this person that owed me money from forever ago. I got a new job. I have partnership like better than I've ever before. Like all of these weird, narcissistic people are just vanished out of their life because that victim energy is gone and they're getting clarity to make right choices. The brain fog is gone. The confusion from all the energies of the parasites aren't like interrupting their thought. And there's a clear path for them, not only to magnetize, to radiate, but to magnetize.
Oh, wow. That's really intriguing. Yeah. And I could see that the energy could very much be um, out of sync and chaotic. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. And what if the person just said, like over and over, like in your example, I will myself to hear my intuition. I will myself to hear my inner voice. So they could actually make a list and program themselves really to, through their will, to open up in those ways. Don't you think?
One of my mantras is, I am the mind of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And or I already remember blah blah blah. I think a lot of our language is weird too, because if we forget our keys and we're in the car, what do we say? We say, oh, I forgot my keys. It's like, no, you didn't. You remembered your keys, and when we can't find our keys or our phone, in the past, I've said, oh, I can't find my phone. Everybody help me find my phone. But now that I've switched it up and I'll say, I am the mind of Christ, knowing where my phone is, or I am God's eyes seeing where my phone is, instantly I'll have a picture in my mind that it's on the counter next to the sink in the guest bedroom or whatever, or guest bathroom, and I'll go straight to it and there it is. And we have the technology. It's right within us when we use it.
Yeah. And I think that's a great message because the answers aren't outside. We have it. We already have it. And if we could just believe it, wow, the whole world would be changed.
Absolutely.
The whole world.
I agree.
And, we are just about out of time. So please let our audience know how they can find out more about you and the different services and your books and things like that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. drsharnael.com pretty much will take you everywhere. I have 5 books that are on there. I have a bunch of great resources regarding online courses. My podcast is there as well. We have a weekly podcast that I've been doing for 17 years now, with great, fun, spiritual things, paranormal things, health things. Again, if you go to my website, drsharnael.com, you can get a free class on how to clear, like we mentioned before. Just clearing trauma out of your field is something that's very easily done. And it makes a lot of changes in your life. And then 2, if you're interested in ozone therapy at home, if you go to drsharnael.com, there's a little button on there, and all you do is click it and give your information so we can send it to you. But we'll send you a video as well as several days of information on how ozone actually affects the physical, the mental, the spiritual, all the above. And I think you guys are going to really get some good resources just from going there and hanging out and seeing. I do biofeedback long distance. We do soul audits, so I can measure your field and what's going on, where you are on consciousness. There's a lot of fun over there, and I hope to find you guys there soon. And I just want to say thank you again, because literally, honest to God, what you're doing is so helpful. I'm going to get emotional. Sorry. I just love anything that you're doing to help with humanity and your service so much. So much inspiration, so much hope. You're just bringing light to people, especially in these times. Sorry. Even today for me, like just meeting you, you're just such a bright light, and just you helped me personally. And you're so calm and just have such a beautiful spirit. I know your audience follows you because of that, and you're just so loving. And you do have such a balance of that right and left brain. You're so intuitive. And I just love that we got to meet and we get to be in these times and we get to do it together.
Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. And isn't it exciting? I'm so excited as well. And very much gratitude for you joining us here beyond the Reiki Gateway. And beautiful to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's Andrea, and I have a special announcement to make. I'm very excited to announce my 2 Reiki classes that I will be teaching in person this summer. They're going to happen in the United Kingdom. I'm traveling there from Michigan here in the United States, and I cannot wait to meet my Reiki students there. We'll be at the beautiful French Partridge Hotel near Northampton, and I will be teaching a Reiki 1 and 2 class June 13th and 14th, and then the Reiki Masterclass begins the 16th and goes through the 19th. We have special hotel accommodation packages available as well. Again, I cannot wait to meet you there and share Holy Fire Reiki with all of you. But class size is limited. To find out more and reserve your seat, please head over to mainstreamreiki.com. You'll see a banner at the top of the page. Click that. You'll get all the information. If you have questions, send me an email. Thanks so much. I hope it works out that we meet in class. Thank you for listening, and you can check the show notes or visit the website beyondthereikigateway.com to find out more about the podcast and connect with me. Please keep in mind that views and opinions expressed in the show don't necessarily reflect those of the podcast or anyone affiliated with its production or advertising. This program is presented for your entertainment only, and all information provided is to be utilized at the listener's own discretion. I, along with the BTRG team, hope you enjoy the show as much as we enjoy making it for you. Wishing you highest blessings until we meet again beyond the Reiki Gateway.